All right, so we're just gonna start. Good morning, y'all.
Good
Good.
morning.
I started to talk about how your last week was, and I'm gonna start with Sean.
You said how last week was.
Hmm.
Last week was good. Uh, Anything specifically? I can't think of nothing.
Your one high, one low from last week.
One high, one low for last week. I can't remember yesterday. Um, I went to Malibu. Then we went to Killer Shrimp. And Killer Shrimp was flight. Um, One low. I just be bored.
Shaquila.
My last week was good. A high was my mom's birthday. It was my mom's birthday on the 30th. So we went out to dinner. Another one was my brother works for Best Buy, and so we went shopping, and he got me his employee discount on everything, and it's like 50 to 60% off everything in there. So, because they really be
Nah.
ripping people off for real. So, but I got everything for cheap. Um, yeah, no lows so far. Just
That's
work eight
great.
to five every day, but that's normal.
That's good. And Miranda.
Um, Highs and lows. Uh, I started my RA job. That is a high and a low. So I got to move in housing for early. Um, I don't got no roommates, so that's life, and that's all I got for right now. Oh, my days are long. It's from 7 in the morning to 7 at night. So that's it.
My high is I got back in town this week from Cleveland, which where I was at this weekend, and my flights was just bad. Um, so the high was getting back in town. The low is I kind of got really tired this week. I've been tired all week, and I can't afford to be tired because I got a lot of work to do. But thank you all for those that quick check in. Um, Now we are beginning our seminar this week, which is titled "The Ideal BSU." First and foremost, I want to thank each of you for your participation in these weekly seminars. I definitely recognize that time is one of our most valuable things, and the fact that y'all are giving us your time to be on these is definitely dope, and we're super honored. Secondly, I want to personally apologize for the last two seminars getting canceled. I was out of town one week, and the other week, our substitute teacher had a family emergency where we couldn't host a seminar. But they were supposed to be on the subject of colonialism, neocolonialism in Africa. And the second one was supposed to be on the ideology of BSU, Black Power, Pan-African, and Pan-Africanism, and Black nationalism. We're going to record those and get them both to you soon because the ideology of BSU is really what drives the rest of our work. Today, the topic of our seminar is the ideal Black Student Union. We're all a part of Black Student Unions and are responsible for their development. As we've discussed before, the chair must set the tone, direction, and vision of the organization. The chair is the primary person responsible for shaping and molding the culture of BSU, for crafting and creating the narrative of BSU, and for determining the politics and representation of BSU. So we have to ask the question, what is the standard for the Black Student Union? A standard is something set up as a rule for measuring or as a model. By what measure do we determine the success or failure of a BSU? Does a protest constitute a BSU? Do social events constitute a good BSU? Does a strong chair alone make the BSU strong? How do we measure our strength and our level of success? Black student unions have been in existence since 1966, yet we do not have a clear, developed, and articulable standard, and we're hoping to change that today. So I want to start off with a question for you all, and the question I want to ask you all is, what does the ideal BSU look like? And if y'all somebody don't volunteer, I'll cold call. What does the ideal BSU look like? What is the standard? Somebody? I'm going with Michael.
um, maybe perhaps some resemblance of a Black Panthers.
Hmm. What does that mean?
Because okay, a group, an organized group of Black people moving towards hmm, to be a I guess resembling the Black Panthers because it's a group of young people who are all in kind of organized in the sense that they are moving towards the same liberation of Black people um, together. Maybe I chose Black Panthers because they have like they're probably like the best or like most organized fashion that I can think of.
Dope, dope. Somebody else. What does the ideal or the standard BSU look like?
Morning, Lee.
Good morning, Justin.
Okay, so I think the Panthers and the Nation, both two are probably the most organized groups that I've ever seen in my life. But when you talk about specifically a standard, from my personal view, it always starts with leadership. It always starts with those who are in charge, who are leading the organization, leading the movement. If the leaders don't have a code of conduct or standard for themselves, then I don't see how, I don't see how the group they're trying to lead can ever be successful. I really think it starts with leadership, but because, the people have essentially supported you and gathered around that individual or individuals to do what's necessary in order to make the organization beneficial. So your original question was, what does say it one more time? What's your original question?
What does the ideal BSU look like? What's the standard that we're all working toward?
The standard that we're all working towards is, of course, certain aspects, unity, of course, within all Black orgs. And I think more importantly, I would say the standard would be working towards Black economics for independence.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the most essential aspect that we could, work towards at the moment. Black economics, independence, be independent. Whoever I was taught in, I think what was that, senior year in high school. My teacher, he said, well, he was talking about the government. He said, what the government gives you, the government can take away. So I feel like if you have your right and your ownership of your own personal things, then who can take that away? It's up to you to just protect with what you have. So that's what I would start. Black economics and unity.
So, and let me get Shaquila to chime in. What does the ideal BSU look like? Or what is the standard? What does it mean by which we measure our success? What are we working toward?
Right. I agree with what was said by Michael and Justin, mainly with Black economics and having ownership. Also, I believe an organization that functions similarly to the Black Panther Party in the way that not only does it serves the needs of its people, not only in protection and representation, but also basic needs like food and things like that. But yeah, definitely. I don't know. I think it's difficult to say because, excuse me, every person is at a different stage of consciousness, and so it's to say how do I phrase it? it's hard for everyone to, it's hard to get everyone to agree that like Black people need their own like economics. Not everybody believes that. So your face is like, but yeah, not everybody believes that. So I think it
I'm
is
not
a little
making a
bit
face.
difficult. Okay. It's not everybody believes that. Like, I think everybody has different ideologies about how Black people will succeed.
Hmm.
But I think an organization that kind of meets people where they're at and caters to the entire spectrum.
Hmm. Thank you.
Or
I'm gonna
can I
take
ask the
some.
question?
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, do you feel like that? I mean, should we, if it's different states of consciousness and like different levels of it, should we, is that necessarily beneficial for us to have different levels of consciousness, or should we all be on one
I'm about to
accord?
answer that.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So what I was gonna say is a quick, like, just like sidebar to Shaquila's point. With all the different levels of consciousness, etc. I think BSU. The reason I'm asking this question of ideal BSU, the standard, is because BSU on your campus is supposed to set the standard for what consciousness looks like, right? BSU folks are the folks that are the most conscious. You get what I'm saying? And so the
Yeah.
thing that's very important for us to recognize that BSU sets the standard by which we can push Black students to raise up ourselves too. Right? BSU has a definitive polity that is nationalist and Pan-Africanist in orientation. Right? Now we are a union, so we serve the needs of all Black students. But in terms of like our political ideology and approach and our philosophy, it's rooted in a particular place, and that does mean in some ways that everyone's not going to like it. All Black students aren't going to agree with it, right? That doesn't mean we fight for them any less, but we don't change our political approach because everyone's not with it, right? Because what we're saying is right, and it is. What we're saying is right in terms of how Black people can be liberated, but we can't change that approach because all Black people are down. The majority of Black people didn't support Dr. King. The majority of Black people haven't supported our leaders on multiple occasions, right? But they had to be perseverant in spite of the opposition that they received from their own in order to achieve success. So that's a quick sidebar I was going to make. But the reason that this question is very important, what is the ideal BSU? That's an important question because this helps us to identify and to understand how we measure success for ourselves. What does success at the end of the year look like for BSU? And if we don't have a standard or a measurement system, then we could think that we're being successful when in all actuality we're not being successful. We could think we're making progress when in all actuality we are not making progress. And so we have to have clear, identifiable standards. And by means of these standards, we can kind of begin to measure up to what it is that we aspire to be doing. So I would say as another sidebar, a couple of us mentioned that the ideal BSU reminds us of the Black Panther Party of the nation or the Nation of Islam, the level of engagement, the level of structure, level of organizational discipline. One of the things I would definitely say, as I mentioned to you all shares before, is that it is imperative, essential, and crucial that we actually study these histories so that when we measure ourselves up, when we see whether or not we've had a successful year, we actually have a much more thorough and in-depth context to measure ourselves with. So again, our key question for today is what is the ideal BSU? What is the standard? Today's seminar is based on the work of ABC Field Director Miranda, who has conducted a series of interviews with Black Student Union leadership over the past 4 decades. In addition, is a compilation of my experiences over the last 4 or so years relative to building strong Black student unions. The ideal Black student union would be a hub of consciousness, a space where you learn about different issues and learn about yourself. An ideal Black student union would have a sacrificial spirit to put the community first and work in unison with one another. BSU should be supportive of personal and academic needs of Black students. What is the role, purpose, and function of the Black Student Union? The Black Student Union should fulfill the cultural, political, social, and academic needs of Black students. The Black Student Union is responsible for maintaining a voice for Black students. In addition, BSU is responsible for creating positive and realistic images of a Black community and holding the university accountable to Black excellence. Now I want to break that down because that was a lot of words. First, I want to start with culture. BSU helps to foster a Black cultural experience with Black students who are in a predominantly white institution. As such, BSU becomes a hub, a silhouette of black people's experiences, wherein black students can find reminders and reminiscences of home. We create a space where black students can be unapologetically black and unashamedly strong. Culturally, we put forward our blackness as our primary identification. Yes, we do need black cards to enter the issue. Practically, this cultural creation looks like the conversation. I'm glad you laughed, Justin. Practically, this cultural creation looks like the conversation and advice about black hair products for sisters, or it could be the basketball game for brothers. Practically, this looks like soul food or other African food at our events. This looks like our programs always having the subtle reminders of the beauty of blackness and Dikra symbols, quotes from our elders, ancestors, music, and other indicators of our culture. What is culture? Dr. Wade Nobles identifies culture as the vast structure of behaviors, ideas, attitudes, values, habits, beliefs, customs, language, rituals, ceremonies very important, and practices peculiar to a particular group of people, which provides them with a general design for living and patterns for understanding reality. This system of culture teaches the people to recognize reality and to respect certain relationships in reality. For example, we recognize the pervasiveness of racism at our educational institutions. Therefore, a professor doesn't have to come out and say, I'm a racist, but we can recognize the cultural traits of racism in our presence, even when it's culture, even when it's subtle. Culture gives meaning to reality. As such, culture has the power to compel behavior and the capacity to reinforce ideas and beliefs about human functioning, including issues of educational achievement and motivation. It is important to note, in fact, that nothing happens outside of culture for human beings. Culture is to humans as water is to fish. It is the total environment in which we exist. As such, BSU's job is to create an environment that is centered in blackness. Whose culture is the water that most of us swim in at our campuses? Most of us swim inside of the waters of white culture. To reverse this trend, therefore, BSU must be a cultural influence, constantly reminding our people of the beauty of our identity and culture. However, we should not be confused thinking that this only means having soul food at our meetings. Culture is not a compilation of ethnic heroes and holidays, nor is it Black History Month, nor is it just our music and our dance. We must be intentional about creating, maintaining, and centering Black culture within our organizations. Intentional meaning you and your board should have a very specific and intentional conversation about the culture of your Black Student Union. This goes along two topics. Number one, how do we ensure blackness permeates BSU in all of our endeavors? And number two, how do we create a positive, embracive, and unified organizational culture? This is very, very important. Sometimes we underestimate the toll that our people have paid. We were deprived of the ability to practice our folk ways, more ways, and culture through the process of slavery for over 310 years in shackles. Even worse, after slavery, Black folks have been forced into a situation of mass acculturation or assimilation, the loss of our culture and cultural ways in exchange for somebody else's. Many Black folks enter then university and have the experience of a migrant or immigrant, someone coming into a new society in which they sacrifice their own languages, they sacrifice their own ways of being, their own ways of living, their own foods, in exchange for appreciation and affirmation inside of the social environment that they are in. How many of us no longer use slang? How many of us no longer cook Black food? How many of us don't like being loud in public because that's too Black? What does it mean? Why do we say that we've lost our culture and have assimilated in many ways? Have you ever noticed that Black people, especially in academia, are the only people you'll ever find having long discussions about things like, what does it mean to be Black? What is Blackness? Who is Black? Have you ever heard a group of Chinese people arguing over what it means to be Chinese? No. This informs us that due to our experiences here in America, we must be hyper-vigilant, studying, and intentional to maintain Black culture on campus. Black culture and white culture are two different realities. Ever notice you don't see Black children running around the store as if they have no sense? No, you don't. Because Black mothers will put a reminder on the behinder. As we all know, they're not here to be our friends. or we could wait until we get home, but it's a part of our culture to hold our people accountable. Black culture is centered on the collective. White culture is centered on the individual. Black culture is full of improvisation and change. White culture is full of stagnation and frozen, and the lack of change. Black culture retains functional and spiritual value for all things, whereas white culture is absent and devoid of spiritual centering. I want to provide some examples of what this may manifest as practically within the organization that we are building called BSU. Individual versus collective. BSU operates as a collective. No person is left behind. What you do must be in the best interest of the group, not merely yourself. BSU should not be a resume builder. That's a cultural trend. BSU should be a place where leaders are willing to sacrifice because a culture is established that places the community above the self. We have standards for the protection of the community, a code of conduct, both written and unwritten. Now, our BSUs can become very strong once we are able to mandate accountability of our leaders and of our membership. This is a cultural trait that is based on collectivism, which is the way of African people. As Marimba Annie wrote it, Dr. Marimba Annie wrote it, noted, spiritual accountability is the mandate of African people. We can have long, heated discussions on the accountability of brothers on campus. Yes, we have to take it there. And I'll give an example from ABC. We recently brought somebody on our staff who had some issues with some women in his community, right? And as a result, myself and some of the other leadership in ABC had to have a very honest and frank and thorough discussion with him on the standards that we expect from him as a leader in BSU. We have to make sure that accountability is an essential imperative in the culture that we're developing in our organization. Again, this does not happen on accident. In order to make accountability a standard, you and your leadership team needs to sit down and actually have a discussion on what the culture of the organization will be. Are we accountable, or do we let folks get away with things? Are we soft, or are we strong? Are we militant, or are we disorganized? What is the culture of the BSU on your campus? Improvisation. Simple things like audibles on the program based on what everyone's spirit is feeling is an example of black improvisation. But explicit things like Shibuya roll call. So when I do trainings with BSUs today, I tend to include things like that because a lot of times some of us have gotten so acculturated to white experiences on campus that we've gotten very far away from things that have been part of black culture for a long time. Why not do double dutch at the barbecue? Why not do things that are traditionally black experientials? We want to bring back things that you used to do as a child that was beautiful, black, and just part of the experience before you necessarily came into a university that reminded you about the laws of appropriateness and respectability. So we highly recommend the presence of activities like drumming, dancing, call and response. These are cultural indicators. Have a cipher on campus. These are all representations of black people's culture. And we must censor our blackness and our culture in every aspect of our work. Pardon me. Politically, BSU is a strong politics or political. BSU is a strong advocate for the needs of black people, both on campus and off campus. It's very important that we understand that it's both on campus and off campus. On campus, this engagement follows in the renegotiation of power dynamics and the gaining of power to advocate for black people. Specifically, on campus, these centers of power that BSU works within are faculty, staff, administrators, the campus newspaper, student government, and within our own communities. Pardon me. Faculty. There are three things that we offer for you all to do with faculty on campus. Number one, identify key decision-making faculty on campus. Faculty on campus make all of the decisions in terms of the academic trajectory of the campus. What classes are mandatory, what classes aren't mandatory, what departments are funded, what departments aren't funded. So it's very important to understand who are the faculty on your campus that are making decisions. And then identify faculty who may be supportive of BSU's political objectives. Start with Black Studies, Sociology, and Education. They tend to have a larger proportion of black faculty. Ask around. Who are the, quote, down faculty on campus? These individuals will be useful for the following things. They'll be very useful for advice, historical context, as well as being the power of a strong voice. Students tend to be on campus for 2 to 6 years, but a faculty member might be on campus for 10 to 20 years. So their perspective of what is and is not successful, their perspective of what is and is not necessary, their perspective of how to move around centers of power on campus is a lot more vast in the work. Okay. Number 2, staff. The same questions. Who are the key staff making decisions? Who are the down staff? And what is the historical context they can give you? And in what ways can they advocate on behalf of the needs for the Black Student Union? Number 3, administration or administrators. Administration is the center of most student-related, non-academic decision-making on campus. As a result, BSU should have an effective and practical working relationship with campus administrators. The ideal BSU is able to identify which administrators are allies, neutral, or enemies. This becomes essential to BSU's ability to move forward a political agenda throughout the year. If you, as a BSU chair or vice president, do not know the key administrators on campus on a first-name basis, you are not meeting the standard that you need to meet in order to effectively advocate for your community. And we have to develop this over the next year. The height of effectiveness in working with administrators may look like the following: establishing mandatory quarterly meetings with your campus chancellor or vice chancellor of student affairs. These administrators are being paid by your student fees and by your parents' tax dollars. They have a mandate to meet with you upon request. BSU should have standard meetings and frequent meetings with these individuals, because these individuals are making decisions about Black people without Black people necessarily being involved in the decision-making process. This may look like facilitating the development of a Black campus administrator meeting club. Are there more than one Black administrators on your campus? Are they meeting? Are they strategizing? Are they organizing? Are they taking direction and instructions from BSU? It generally just means BSU has developed a level of influence with the campus leadership. Why is this important? There are 2 reasons this relationship with campus administrators are very, very important. Reason number 1, campus administrators make decisions around the direction of the campus. Number 2, campus administrators have a whole lot of money. Most of the money of the campus is centered inside of their offices. So if BSU is broke, it needs money. If it has these proper relationships that it has negotiated and developed, then these relationships help to leverage people with money. Okay? Next up is student government. Student government is an important source of power in the campus community. Even better, unlike mainstream society, student government is conquerable due to low voter turnout and the comparable small size of a campus community. Practically, this looks like BSU having a working relationship with the student body president and external vice president, the person who deals with external affairs. In addition, this looks like BSU being able to get what it needs from student government. The 2 ways student government can assist BSU in its mission are A, resource or funds allocation, and B, taking political stances in support of BSU. The ideal BSU is familiar with student government structure and key players. As a result, they are able to maneuver the student government into supporting the needs of BSU whenever it is necessary. In addition, the ideal BSU is able to ensure direct Black student representation inside of the student government. For example, at Berkeley, we ensure every year that at least one Black student runs for the student senate, and then we ensure BSU ensures to help them get elected. Afterwards, the Black student senator at Berkeley is understood as a Black community representative and is an ex officio member of the BSU board, and is responsible and accountable to the Black Student Union for updating and representing our needs to the student government. Even bigger would be the intentional election of Black and people of color slates to executive student government positions, whereas BSU can take over the student government and use it toward the revolutionary goals of BSU. Many of your campuses have student governments with budgets that exceed $1 million. How much of that money is BSU getting? How much of that money are Black people getting? How much of that money is being allocated to campaigns that support the resistance that Black people are having? How much of that money is going to Black Lives Matter protests? Your student governments have tons of cash flow, and that cash flow is not being directed to Black students because we tend not to have a voice in those spaces. So it's very important to connect with your student government. Next is the campus newspaper. The campus newspaper is the officially recognized voice of the student perspective. They shape how the external world views student issues and perspectives, and they shape the minds of students on campus. Lastly, the newspaper records are a primary tool of historians in shaping the narratives of the past. As a result, they are one of the most influential entities on campus. BSU should ideally have a working relationship with the campus newspaper. Functionally, this looks like identifying the campus news reporter. There's always one or two reporters who are devoted to campus news in particular, and developing a relationship, whereas when BSU engages in activities, it maintains a point of contact in the campus newspaper. Secondarily, and largely more important, is the much more difficult takeover of the student newspaper. How can BSU completely reshape the narrative that the campus newspaper reports? The campus newspaper is also useful for things like opinion editorials, letters to the editor, and other news items that are able to shape the narrative on campus and are utilized as a point of leverage in leveraging BSU's power on campus. What does that mean? That means your campus administrators do not want to see negative op-eds or written attacks against them or about their racist practices inside the student newspaper. They don't want to see that. So your ability to harness a relationship with the student newspaper then becomes leverage for you to renegotiate power with the campus administrators. Hope this is making sense. Are there any questions? Let me stop there. Okay, cool. We're almost done, and then I'm going to ask you all some questions. Next is social. BSU is responsible for creating an environment that is supportive of Black students' social development. This is largely done programmatically and through the creation of space. Does BSU provide physical spaces for Black students to enjoy life with other Black people? This can be a range of activities from game nights, taco nights, beach days, general body meetings. How are we fostering the social development of Black students? How are we ensuring Black students know each other? How are we ensuring that Black students are able to develop relationships with people who they haven't known before? Next and lastly is academic. How does BSU facilitate the academic success of Black students on campus? This comes through many avenues. Things like study jams, faculty mixers, academic support services, connections and relationships with faculty and staff and administrators, study groups. All of these don't have to necessarily be planned by BSU, but all of these should be emphasized in the culture of the organization. Yes, we are Black, but it's very important to recognize and to remember that we are also students. And we don't want to find ourselves losing our access as students because we didn't take the proper precautions. BSU is able to help to create an organizational culture that holds us accountable to the fact that we are here to graduate and go back and help our communities. This all flows from the four cardinal visionary points of the Black Student Union: voice, expression, resources, and agency. How is BSU maintaining a strong voice for Black students on campus? How is BSU maintaining the ability for Black students to be expressive and to express themselves on campus? How is BSU providing resources, whether it be academic, financial, or relational, to Black students on campus? And lastly, how is BSU providing a space and a sense of agency for Black students on campus? Okay, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to go down the row and see if there's, I'm not sure how fast I was talking. Y'all know this whole thing about recording online. I want to go down the row and see if there's anything that folks picked up that was new and useful information. Anybody want to volunteer to go first?
I'll go.
Yes.
Actually, I kind of stepped away at the last, for a minute or so I didn't quite catch the end of what you were saying. But just something that stuck out to me was just the whole idea of culture and Black culture. I think that's monumental. I think culture is essentially the thing that protects a people from genocide. And I look at it in three aspects of culture, politics, and economics. And culture is essentially the foundation for those three essential things. The culture should be a way of, you hit it spot on, the way that people, I love your analogy where you said it's the culture is to people what water is to fish, because it really essentially is that. And we're part of a culture, part of many cultures, American culture, but even as me, I go to Long Beach State. Long Beach State has a culture in itself, and different universities have a certain culture surrounding them and everything like that, and cities as well. So, it really teaches you to be aware of your surroundings and then seeing what's beneficial for you as well. But I think culture is essentially the main thing that we have to understand in order to have any future progression as a people. because like I said, I think it's the foundation. So I would love for us to have more conversations on that.
Thank you, Justin. Anybody else want to volunteer? Something major that you that stood out for you? And then the other question I want to throw out there is, how can any of this that we talked about the last 25 minutes or so, how can this be applied on your campus? Anybody want to volunteer?
Well, I can go. I was like, everybody hear that? I like that you spoke about culture, because I think that that's something that I know for sure that CSUN lacks. We try to get the Black culture, and we're trying to bring that back, because a lot of students, they don't participate because they feel like they we don't have that at CSUN. So I know for sure what CSUN is trying to do, and what I kind of asked you all how y'all feel about it, was the step team and stuff like that. That dancing, we're bringing back Black culture and things like that. And it's more of, when I think of the culture, I think of pride and things like that, and how to embrace our Blackness, and different ways we can celebrate that. What else? I'm in a motion of creating a clothing line for our school. And then, yeah, don't look at me like that, Sally. I am. It's like we're calling it like a Black Matador clothing line and things like that. And we have different nicknames that us as Black people use, or different spaces on campus that we just Black students use. So that's kind of how, like, I know for sure CSUN, we're trying to bring culture, or the Black culture, to our school and things like that. That was it.
I guess I'll go. I know a big. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, make sure I ain't talking to myself.
Is it Sean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up, man?
I know a big thing at Dominguez is like we have this cross cultural retreat, and so everybody goes to different cultures, and you get to like mix and mingle, and when they bring up different discussion topics, you can always see like how different people react to it, and so every year there's a culture discussion. And for those of you who know Ebony, this is kind of how me and Ebony met and got close. We were at the cross cultural retreat, and I was a facilitator for the groups, and they broke us off into groups based off of skin color. And so, you got to choose who you identified with and who you went with, and all the Black people got together. And when they start talking about culture, no one knew what the Black culture was, and if we had a culture, and everyone was just confused about culture. Like if you went to the Hispanic or Latino group, you could talk to 5 or 6 different of them, and they all have the same idea of what their culture is. Or Polynesians all have the same idea of what the culture is. They have like 3 basic principles that all Polynesians run off of. But Black people, they were like, well, I don't really know what our culture is. And then, you have people come in like dance, hip hop, and the handshake that we do when we greet each other. But I think it's just like we were talking about earlier, how there are different levels of consciousness. We all have to be on some sort of the same page so that we can even begin to move forward. Because for those people who don't have an idea of what the Black culture is, it'll be hard for them to grasp the idea of some of the things that we're talking about if we include culture, because they have nothing to relate it to, because they're not sure what it is or like what we're talking about. And so I think it's interesting that we were talking about culture, and I think it is important. But I think at the same time, we have to incorporate kind of basic principles into our culture so that we all kind of operate off of the same thing. It's like the positions that ABC has given us, so that all the different BSUs run off of the same positions. That'll be like the base foundation of what we kind of move on forward with our e-board. And so I think we should kind of have the same conversation with culture. What is the basis of our culture? What is the root of it? And then kind of branch off from there.
Thank you, Sean. Let me have someone from volunteer.
If I can kind of echo This is Shaquila from Fullerton. What everyone else has said, I think culture was important because I feel like, I mean, at our school, students are not unapologetically black. Like you were saying, they're afraid to be like too loud in public because that's too black, or they don't want to do like, I mean, they might not be opposed to like double dutch and hopscotch and all that stuff, but I kind of feel like because we're at a PWI, it's not encouraged, obviously, and I think some students feel uncomfortable, so it's important for us to get back to culture. And then your second question was, I had an answer. What was the second one?
Like something you can do to implement.
Oh, I think it was, oh yeah, okay, so what I took away from this, I think, unfortunately, we have a tendency to not think of how important the relationships with administrators are and how we can capitalize off of those relationships. And so I think just for you to mention it, it kind of reminded me that I really do need to get to know our administrators and black faculty and staff that can really help push forward BSU and help us. So yeah.
So, I want to move forward, but I want to re-highlight some things, right? Culture was a very, very important piece, and the main takeaway I want you all to walk away with is that you have to be intentional about creating a unapologetically black culture on your campus, right? It doesn't just happen, right? You actually need to sit down and think about or talk with folks about how do we actually go about doing this. That was point one. Point two was in terms of political relationships. Who is it that we need to be getting with in order to be able to shape the campus politics? Most of you all, just based on my knowledge of you and your campuses, don't have a standing relationship with campus administrators or campus faculty associations or black faculty generally, right? Those are very, very important, as well as student governments, right? So the places that you really want to, and we'll coach you along the road, but the places you want to begin to start thinking about how do we develop a relationship with, and then how do we ensure that we're in a position of power in these relationships, again, as faculty, staff, administrators, student government, and the campus newspaper. Those are very, very important, if not critical, for the successful development of your BSU and for the development of a black campus agenda. Okay. The next and final thing that I want to talk about, Sean actually just mentioned it, is the standard BSU positions that most of you all, I think all of you all on here, except for Santa Barbara, have adopted, right? And I want to go over the structural positions because the structure helps to accommodate some of the discussions we've had over the last 4 weeks in terms of how do we actually implement them, okay? So there's 10 positions that we are offered to you all. The first one is the chair of the president. The role of the chair or the president should be an activist and agitator. The president should be a person who can advocate for black issues and speak on behalf of black people and beyond, willing to work for the need of black students and the people on campus. Presidents should believe in building leaders so that everyone can govern themselves. Presidents should focus on the relationships of its members, ensuring that he or she is working with all of their members to make sure they are motivated and inspired, right? The president is responsible for knowing the history of Black Student Union, creating institutional memory, making sure everything is being recycled, and ensuring that BSU has a legacy on campus. To be a president, you have to understand that there must be an acceptance of the responsibility of sacrifice that comes with the role. And you also must always be in tune with the pulse or the needs of the community. Being president is very important that you're constantly critical and in self-assessment, and you understand the strengths and the weaknesses of yourself as a president, and also the strengths and weaknesses of the organization. You cannot hope to be good, you have to actually be good. The chair of the Black Student Union develops, maintains, and implements the mission and vision of BSU with strategy, intent, and clarity. The chair manages and supports the external vice president and the internal vice president and the finance officers. These are your direct reporting lines. These are people who you directly manage, while also providing general support for the entire board. The chair is responsible for the health, well-being, and development of the black community on campus politically, economically, socially, and academically. The chair is responsible for ensuring the organization gets things done. These duties include facilitation of BSU board meetings. Let me stop. Have you all received this in writing yet?
No.
No. Okay,
the positions and the details?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I think Miranda sent them.
I'm like, yes.
Okay. So some of this is actually written down in the pieces that Miranda has sent to y'all, but I'll make sure that we resend them to everyone. Okay. Um, so now you facilitate the board meetings, the general body meetings, and their success or failure is the responsibility of the president. Something I want to emphasize that I've emphasized previously is that the president is responsible for the finance of the organization, not the finance director. The finance director operates on behalf of BSU per the instructions of the BSU president, but whether or not the finances are handled ultimately comes to your table. Okay. Cohesion of board, emergency town hall meetings, things like how the BSU response in emergency situation. Leading by example is very, very important for the president, right? So one conversation myself and Miranda have had, right, is sometimes some of the presidents give us their feedback or their difficulty working with board members, getting board members to come to things on time, getting board members to show up, getting board members to engage and to read, etc. And one of the conversations that we've had is that presidents have to lead by example, right? And so if you're unable to get your folks to come on time, right, you have to consider, am I coming on time to the things I'm supposed to be on time to? Am I on time to our board retreats? Am I on time to the chair seminars, right? Whatever you do as a practice, as a president, that is ultimately going to be the example that your board is going to follow. People are going to do what you do, not what you say. So when I was president, and even to this day, I have a personal philosophy that I'm going to outwork anybody that's a part of my organization because that is my role as a president, right? I'm going to be earlier than them. I'm going to leave later than them. I'm going to put in more work than anyone, bar none, because that's my role as chair, right? So that's president. Next thing I want to jump to, well, let me stop there. Any questions on that or any thoughts? Okay, let me keep pushing. Somebody's going to talk after the next two. Next is the role of the internal vice president. The internal vice president assists the chair in the areas of staff development, visioning, strategic planning, troubleshooting, and developing effective organizational systems. In addition, the internal vice president initiates, maintains, and develops the Black Leadership Council. The internal vice president assists the chair in developing board cohesion, culture, and comfortability. And lastly, the internal vice president manages the following board members: retention director, secretary, communication director, and leadership development director. Notice these are all positions internal to the workings of BSU, okay? So I want to kind of elaborate on each of these roles. Number one is staff development, right? As a chair, I prefer to have, this is my style, and this is somewhat stylistic, so you don't have to adopt this necessarily. But as a chair, I prefer to have positive, healthy, friendly relationships with the board members, and to have the vice president or the internal vice president, the one that's constantly like checking in on folks, right? So your IVP is setting up systems to make sure that every time a task is assigned, that everyone knows when its due date is, and then they're going to be the one to follow up with people to make sure that the due date is done, right? Whereas the president, which is distinct, right? Whereas the president works with the IVP to develop a general outline for the year. Here's when things need to get done. Here's when our general deadlines are. Then the IVP works with the board members to ensure that solid days are set for the deadline, and then that people meet those deadlines, okay? The Black Leadership Council. So your internal vice president is going to be working with different Black organizations on campus to develop what we call a Black Leadership Council. And this is where all the Black organizations meet, however frequent you desire. But the presidents meet, and the purpose of the meeting is to make decisions on the direction of the Black community, right? And so this has three layers to it. One level is the development of a community calendar, right? Which prevents like two different organizations having a program on the same day, right? But it also allows for folks that are just in the community to have one solid location by which they can see everything that's happening in the Black community for the year. So one is the development of a community calendar. Two is the development of a sense of direction for the Black community at large, right? So you have a discussion with the presidents, right? What do we want our community to look like this year? What is the culture that we want to implement this year? What are the major areas of improvement that we need to improve upon this year? The third level is emergency response systems, right? So let's say your administrator uses the N-word or something like that, right? BSU spearheads the response team, but then it pulls these organizational presidents together, because the organizational presidents are each supposed to be bringing numbers and people to the situation room or to the actual like action or whatever needs to happen. Okay. Then the last role of the IVP is management. So they're managing internal roles: the retention director, secretary, communications director, and leadership development director. Okay. The external vice president. The external vice president cultivates external relationships, alliances, and the perception of the Black Student Union. So this specifically is dealing with external to the campus as well as external to the Black community. Okay. The EVP is the keystone of political education on campus and informs the campus community of events directly impacting the Black community on campus, nationally, and globally. So they are a political affairs director. This is the person who's really supposed to be directing the politics and the political education of the Black community. The EVP must understand and assess the needs of Black students and address them through necessary and creative methods, right? This, for example, would look like the BSU demands that many of the UC campuses did last year. That means we want a Black resource center on campus. We want a Black-themed housing on campus. Your external vice president is the person who pushes and advocates for those kind of things. Practically, they host 2 political education seminars. They will host a political debate. They're the ones responsible for planning actions and demonstrations. And then they work to implement the ABC annual campaign on campus. So I'm going to stop there and take any questions or any thoughts on the roles of the 3 chairs, or the chair and the vice chairs.
Kind of a comment that I have regarding the internal vice president and their role of the Black Leadership Council. On our campus, we have what's known as a Black Advance, and the Black Advance is there's an initiative created a few years ago, maybe like a little before I got to Cal Poly, that was built to kind of streamline and be the umbrella organization for all Black wards on campus. And so essentially they are the ones who are specified to have that coordinating position of all the Black organizations. I think it would begin to cause a little bit of a rift on campus if I were to maybe too quickly move in on what it is that they're doing. But I make it, I'm very transparent about my intent to kind of take that back to BSU, but over like the course of the next couple of years.
I think that's perfect. Everything doesn't have to be done on an immediate, on the snap. You want to do things with the best strategic approach. And so, like, be present in the space. And to be honest, when our BSUs return to the strength that they used to have, like, it would naturally occur. You know what I'm saying? It would naturally occur. But for now, you work through the currently existing spaces to push the things that we're saying right now. Let me see if we get one more thought or comment. Anybody?
We can keep going.
Okay, I'll keep going. The next one I'll touch on is the Our Historian. The Our Historian researches, gathers, and maintains an accurate historical picture of the BSU on campus. So Our Historian's role is split into two main functions. One is getting the history of BSU on the campus, and the second is recording the history that we are making on the campus, okay? The Our Historian reports directly to the BSU's internal vice president and will receive additional support and oversight and assistance from ABC's Office of Communications. The Our Historian is responsible for record keeping, minute taking, and the transmission of institutional knowledge. Again, so 2 roles. 1 is getting history from the past. 2 is recording history as it happens. The Communications Director. The Communications Director oversees all external and internal communications, including but not limited to news media, online visibility, social media presence, historical research, and record keeping and publishing. So again, the Communications Director role falls into two routes. One is internal communications and one is external communications. Internal communications looks like a BSU monthly newsletter or weekly newsletter or whatever it is that BSU should have some kind of frequent communication with its membership, right? The Communications Director is responsible for developing the systems like a MailChimp or like some kind of email system or a mass text system where BSU can communicate directly with its membership, okay? Now, the other role of the Communications Director is external. How does BSU connect with, relate to external media. So that's your newspapers on campus. If BSU does action in like CBS or ABC or somebody comes, your external communications director is the person that connects with them. They also connect with local black radio stations, local black newspapers, etc., right, to get the word and the message of BSU external to the campus. In addition, the only other thing I would add is that they're also responsible for the production of publicity materials, flyers, ads, posters, social media accounts, etc., okay? The Black Community Programs Director. This is the newest position that we've had on BSU, but the Black Community Programs Director organizes the delivery of resources and programs to the black community outside the academy. The BCP Director works directly with the ABC's BCP Director to research, analyze, and implement solutions to the problems that black folks face outside the university. Practically, this has two or three practical mechanisms. One practical mechanism is the recruitment of black students onto campus, right? So people who are formerly known as access directors or recruitment directors are functionally BCP directors, and their role is to create avenues and structures and streamlines on how we bring black people into the campus. The second role that they have, and this is, it could be short-term or long-term, but how do we deliver the resources of the black campus or the university to black communities outside the university? For example, when the Panthers launched their free breakfast program in Los Angeles, the way that they did that is that they got the campus, which was throwing away food every single day, which campuses still do. They said, instead of throwing this food away, you're going to give it to us, then we're going to take this food and feed black people in South Central Los Angeles, and it'll be called the Black Panther Party Community Breakfast Program, right? So that's an example of how Black Communities Program Directors work. How do we get the resources of the campus and deliver programs and systems and support mechanisms to black people who may never have access to the campus? The Retention Director. The Retention Director develops programs, practices, policies, and campaigns to support the academic success of black students on campus. So the Retention Director works with the Black Student Union Board and Leadership Council, as well as relevant campus entities to streamline access to information necessary for retention. So this includes things like study jams. These are things like your Black Student Success Guides, things like your Black Faculty Mixers. These kind of programs, as well as support services, fall under the Retention Director. The Membership Development Coordinator. The Membership Development Coordinator is responsible for recruiting, engaging, and developing BSU's membership. You should have a very solid way of understanding who is and is not a member of BSU, particularly when it comes to active members, right? How many people can you actually call and they show up when you make the call? Your Membership Director, their role is to be finding ways to actually recruit people into BSU and then developing a system for the record of those members, right? And so let's say BSU has 50 members. What are their names? What are their years? What are their majors? What are they going to do when they graduate, right? What are the phone numbers? When we need to contact them, how do we contact them? How many of them actually come to our general body meetings? How many of them actually come to our protests? How many of them actually come to our events, right? Your membership development director is really looking at ways, how do we develop a more effective relationship with our membership base, okay? The next one is some of the things that they will do practically. The membership director is running an annual membership campaign, and that looks like you see some people tabling throughout the year. That looks like tabling. That's like classroom announcements at the class at the beginning of the year. Hey everyone, I'm part of BSU. This is what we do. If you're a black student, definitely see me afterwards. Here's my email address. We want to bring you into our community, right? So running an annual membership campaign at the beginning of the year. They also are responsible for arranging transportation, registration, and lodging for the ABC conference, right? So getting your folks to ABC conference, and generally lifting the morale and participation of BSU members in our events, programs, meetings, and initiatives. The finance director. The finance director works directly with the chair to ensure BSU's financial progress, stability, and independence. The finance director will develop financial strategies, metrics tied to that strategies, and create a system for financial management of the organization. BSU should not be in debt. My goal for next year for all of our BSUs, not to have any of us in debt. The last couple of years, we've had multiple BSUs in debt every single year. And I'm talking about thousands of dollars in debt. So baseline, your finance director absolutely must make sure that BSU isn't in debt. Secondly, your finance director is thinking about and creating creative ways to raise money. And thirdly, they're making sure that BSU's money is managed properly and effectively. What are some creative ways to raise money? The general pots of money are alumni, staff, faculty, student government, and fundraisers. alumni, staff, faculty, student government, and fundraisers. Okay. And the last position is the Leadership Development Director. The Leadership Development Director works directly under the supervision of the internal vice president and trains Black student leadership on campus, primarily in these 4 areas: grassroots organizing, professionalism, management, Black consciousness, and self-improvement. They work directly with ABC's Leadership Development Director, who will be providing content and training so that they can facilitate the training of Black students on your Black student leaders on your campus. The last thing I want to go over is a month-to-month outline of how you can kind of think about your year in an effective way. Okay, so we're currently in July. The semester schools get in school in September, and the quarter schools get in school in October. Okay, month 1, you should really be focusing on raising consciousness and developing community. Right, your programming, your work. It should really be on how do we lift the political consciousness, and then how do we develop community. Month 2, which is October for some, November for others, should really be fixed on activism. Now that we've developed a level of consciousness through this series of programs, general body meetings, and other activities, how do we actually get people actively engaged? Month 3, it should be focused on service. How do we focus these resources of Black students on campus, and how do we create a service-oriented perspective where we're now serving the larger Black community? And month 4, which is December for some and January for others, should be looking at networking. How do you develop deeper relationships between Black students, staff, and faculty on campus? Then how do we leverage those for Black folks once they leave? Month 5 should be rebuilding community, right? So this is January for some. This is January for folks. You should be looking at, before we go to ABC conference, like how do we actually make sure our folks are tight, we're cool, we're friendly, right? This is like your check-in point to make sure that your community development is happening effectively. And then you repeat the cycle all over again. Building community, raising consciousness, activism, service, and networking. The last thing that I would add for the last month, which is May for some, June for others, is thinking about how do we include a celebratory aspect to our work inside of the last month of school, right? Does BSU do a BSU banquet? Do we do I think it's Cal State Fullerton that does a Black Grammys, right? What do we do to award and to reward Black students for the work that they've done over the course of the year? That's all we have for today's seminar. I'll open it up to questions, and I guess to check and see how folks are feeling. As always, Miranda will send out thorough notes later on, and we'll send out the recording also.
I had a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you I'm not sure if I caught it, but can you clarify the difference between the BCPD and the EVP?
Okay, the Black Community Programs Director is doing things related to programs and services to the Black community outside of campus. So that might look like like bringing students on a campus, like access work. The other way that looks might be like a free breakfast program, right? That's a program that functionally serves the interests of Black folks off campus. The external director is like a political director who does external work, but the external work is more in the sense of like influencing the narrative and shaping narratives around Black people, right? So speaking at events, developing relationships with different Black political organizations, things like that. Anybody else have any other questions?
I do. I have a question sort of unrelated. For the BSLT, I know Miranda was telling me, she told me the dates, and that the arrival is in the evening, departure in the morning of the 6th. Do you have a specific time yet, or are you going to let us know in the coming days?
For BSLT, we'll send out a formal email in the coming days, but your arrival will be Friday. It doesn't have to be morning. Like afternoon, evening is fine. Afternoon is probably fine so your people aren't tired. Friday the 4th. And then you'll be leaving Monday the 7th, probably out by the afternoon also.
Oh, okay.
We'll send out a formal email. Our staff has to check in and make sure that we have all of our I's dotted and T's crossed.
Right. Thank you.
I have a question about
Go ahead.
My question is like, how and when will like these specified positions link up with the ones on the ABC staff. Like
Yes.
our
I got
membership
you.
development coordinator has to be in workings with someone on your staff. Same with the
Yeah.
LDD.
So we're finishing up like our last bit of recruitment of our staff, and we have a staff meeting toward the end of August. And once we have that, we'll be able to like more effectively connect you all. Your political directors can be connected immediately, and the political directors can be connected immediately. And I think your internal directors can be connected immediately. I have to see which ones we have available to connect right now, but by the end of August, we'll have that ready.
I had a
We have
question.
to train our staff to work to be ready first. Yes, Miranda.
I know the question that has the the problem, or some of the schools that I know I've communicated with, is I guess finances and things like that, because I know they have to get to the Black leadership training, and that's in Berkeley, and then they're like, okay, how can they get there as far as money, because a lot of them don't have money, and then does their whole board have to go? And then I have another one for the next year. It's like, okay, some people feel like they have to choose between the BOT ABC conference, and I want to say, and then maybe Camp Euro and things like that. So financially, how are they going to get there?
Thank you. So here's my recommendations for transportation to be it. I'll do these in separate segments, right? So for Black student leadership training, my recommendation for transportation is that there absolutely has to be some faculty or administrator who can probably sponsor it. The transportation cost shouldn't exceed $500 max. And so like there should be a singular person who can probably make that kind of donation. So I will contact the chair of my Black Studies department, as well as a Black administrator that you know that you're familiar with. So that's where I will contact there. Because transportation, you're roughly looking at, depending on the size of your board, possibly one van or 2 cars, depending on how many people from your board come. And the transportation down, gas about $170 round trip. Yeah, so like that's what the cost look like. So first thing I'll say, get a budget, and once you get a budget, you can send it to myself or Miranda, and we can help you more practically on where to get the money from. Okay, but what I would generally say is that the places that you can outreach for money is that you want to think about faculty, staff, administrators, student government, and fundraisers. Okay, now for ABC conference, the first thing I would do is that you need to set a goal for how many people you want to bring to ABC conference. The cost of ABC conference are as follows. It's a $25 registration fee. I would charge the students that are coming the registration fee. Like they need to pay the $25, okay? Now what I would work to cover is the cost of transportation and housing. We're working on solidifying the hotel still, and so I don't have a rate yet, but I can kind of predict for you the rate is going to be at least $110 a night, okay? Don't quote me on it. We're going to work to get some lower rates, but I can kind of predict for you because Santa Barbara is a bougie town, at least $110 a night. And so in terms of funding that, again, same places. Your student government already has money allocated for students' transportation to conferences, as well as their attendance of conferences. You just have to find like what the formal like route is, or what the formal like what the grant is called, and like we can once you create a budget, and we can begin helping you along the way of finding those pots of money. But your student government should be able to do some substantial funds. Then the second place that you really want to push on is your campus administrators, right? So your student affairs administration specifically, but whoever you know that's in an administrative level position, they all have decent size discretionary budgets, which means they can use it however they please, okay? So those are the main areas that I would say to look for finances. And for Camp Uhuru, we paid for Camp Uhuru. Okay. Any other questions?
Did you say you pay for people's transportation for Camp Uhuru?
Yeah, we did. I
Okay.
think we'll be able to do that this upcoming year too. But like, if we can't, we'll let you know pretty far in advance.
Okay. And then also for the hotel, $110 a night. Typically, how many people does the room house?
Yeah, you would usually put 4 to 5 people in a room. 5 is a
Okay.
squeeze. 4 is ideal.
Okay. Perfect.
Right. And what I would say, like, you all need to set like a realistic goal for how many people you want to bring. Like a lot of the UCs, like on the high end, they might bring 60. On the low end, it might be 40. I think you choose a number based on what you can afford to do, and then based on how many Black students you will actually have interest in coming.
We gonna bring two. Me and Ebony.
What was it? The stay for the BSLT, was that covered, or is
Yeah,
that
we're
on
we're
us?
providing housing for BSLT. Housing and
Cool,
food for those 3 days is on us.
cool, cool, cool. Got it.
They
Okay.
don't believe me when I tell
Hey,
them.
hey, if we find a alternative housing arrangement for Santa Barbara, is that
hmm
okay?
Um, let me know if you find something cheaper than what we offer you, and then we'll move from there.
Well, because I was gonna say I could just stay with some Deltas or some AKs or whatever.
Oh,
You feel
oh
me?
yeah. I mean that's fine, right? But if you bring more people from your campus, which ideally you should, right? It shouldn't just be you and Ebony. Then you just got to figure out how to navigate that. So, I mean,
And
like we're not restricting your housing.
the way the frat work, whoever I bring with me, you feel me, we all stay for free.
But we hope to
I mean,
come
that's
like
cool.
10 people at least.
It could be me and 10 people. We all in the AKA's house for free.
All right.
What AKA
And then make
is
it
gonna
breakfast.
be
Make
there?
it happen. But what I would say is that the campus has money to pay for your hotel. I know that for a fact, right? Your campus has money to pay for your housing, so you just gotta find it and push them on it, and
Yeah,
they can
one
allocate
one
the money.
one of our e-board members is on ASI, so I'm gonna talk to him about the budget. I was
There you
taking
go.
notes on what you were saying on what it was called, so I can ask him more specifically what to look
hmm
for.
Yeah, and like next time I come in and see y'all and I come up to DH, I can probably look through like your probably sit down with that person and find like what the pockets of money are.
Okay.
Any other questions? Cool. We're gonna adjourn on time. This is great. So my last two things I wanna throw out there. One is that I'm going to plan to do a tour of all your campuses and visit first thing in the fall. Me and Miranda and my assistant will work on arranging like that logistically with you. But that's just a heads up. So we're gonna be hitting y'all up around like coming to either like your first general body meeting or like one of your first events. To kind of like come and talk to you about what ABC is, what we're doing, and just like lifting up the campus, that kind of piece. The second thing I want to throw out, public service announcement, is that the 20th anniversary of the Marymount March is in October, on October the 10th. And the theme is Justice or Else. And I am looking for ways for us as BSUs to be involved and engaged. Um, I'm working on a personal fundraising goal to get 20 Black young leaders sponsored. So if you're interested in going, holla at me. And we'll see what we can make happen. But the other thing we're looking at trying to do, and I would like to get you all's help on, is to have watch parties on all of our campuses. So like the day of, since like we're on the West Coast, like a lot of colleges on the East Coast, like they're taking buses and whatnot. But because we're on the West Coast, and that's not as feasible, one of the things we're looking at doing is trying to have watch parties on the campuses where we actually watch it the day of, bring it in live the day of, and like have some kind of something arranged around it. So those last two things I want to throw out as public service announcements. But we'll be hollering at y'all about that ASAP. Go team.
So if we can't get sponsored, we gotta try to raise money ourselves to get out there.
Yeah, if you want to go, yeah.
Okay. Will we have housing, food covered?
Yeah, I get housing. I get housing. It's just flight.
Okay.
Everybody that wants to go, if you can cover your own flight, like that's dope. I got you on housing. All
That
right.
was my question.
I'll send y'all a link if anybody for folks that need more information. All right, is that good? No, any questions before we get off? Cool. Thank y'all, Black people. I look forward to talking to all of y'all in the near future. Stay up, stay black, stay beautiful. Peace out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.